sponsored by Model Makers Workshop. Need parts for your next model project? Model Makers Workshop has you covered with the best aftermarket accessories around. And by Gaahleri, your one-stop shopping for all your airbrush needs. Hello, this is Ken, and thank you for tuning in to the Model Building and Retirement channel. So this is part 4 of a 4-part series of my AMT 1960 Ford Starliner build, as you see behind me here. A lot of fun building this one. I did a lot of modifications, and if you haven't already done so, watch parts 1, 2, and 3, and I'll have links in the description. But all in all, it came out pretty nice. I love the stance of it, and I like the paint job, and that's water-based acrylics, by the way. Before we get into the finale of the build, I want to thank everybody who's been watching my Friday night live streams. And just in case you didn't know, I do them every Friday night at 7 o'clock p.m. I do a live stream with a special guest and a special topic, and it's been a lot of fun. And, hit like and subscribe down below and ring that little bell icon, and you'll be alerted to these. So let's get into the build. Okay, so I'm moving on to other parts of the car now that I got the body all polished up here really pretty. We're getting close to the end there. So now I'm going to work on the interior. And I decided I'm going to go with Kaleido Green. Looks a little lighter here than what it's actually going to be. It's actually a little bit darker. I got a little spot on my paper here. I don't know if you can see that. And then I'm working on some other things. The side pipes and rear license plate. Side pipes were kit chrome. I stripped that down, sanded them really nice, and sprayed them with the Fusion Firm spray chrome, airbrush chrome. And then the license plate bracket was just black plastic, or plastic that was primered black, and then I chromed over that. And started working on the rear bumper here. Got the tail lights installed. Backup lights painted white. I'm going to put some UV resin on them to give them a little bit of a glossy lens look there. And then I got the grille and headlights treated there. Use my panel liner to darken up that grille a little bit. Glued the headlights in with little dots of Mod Podge, and then I diluted Mod Podge about 50% and just brushed over the lenses and gave them kind of a really nice glossy look there. Okay, so now what I'm doing is I'm going to work on the interior, and before I paint that dark green, I'll call it like a forest green, I want to flock the rear package tray. And I don't have the actual flock built for model cars, but I have this woodland scenic snowflake snow for my model railroad scene, my winter scene that I do, and I got quite a bit of this, and it works just fine. So what I'm gonna do, the only thing is you gotta paint it, it's white. So I'm gonna use some Mod Podge, and I'm gonna brush that on the package tray, and then I'm gonna sprinkle the snowflakes onto there and shake it off, and I'm going to reconstitute what's left on the paper, put it back in the bottle, and then I'm going to let that glue set up before I go to paint. So dashboard, seats, upholstery is all going to go forest green, and I just used a little piece of fine line tape here to mask off the package tray. Okay, so let me get some Mod Podge out. Just good old-fashioned clear Mod Podge. And for a brush, use a nice little flat brush here. Gotta kind of work quick before the Mod Podge sets up. Kind of brushing it on wet, but making sure I don't have some really heavy strokes on it. Okay, now that that's pretty wet with Mod Podge, open up my sprinkle side here. and just liberally apply that flock. Kind of tap this seat here to kind of get it to stick. Okay, then once I get that done, I'll just tap it on the back a little bit, get all the excess off. Okay, then I got a nice flocked rear package tray. So then when I go to paint my interior, I will just spray over that with my airbrush as well. All this excess just goes right back into the bottle for recycling and reuse. Kind of fold the paper. So very little waste with this. And then I'm going to mock up a few things. I'm going through my spare parts bin. For example, the model kit has the right amount of pedals there. Okay, so it's got the 3 pedals plus the e-brake. But as you can see on the shifter here, it's got the column shift, so it's probably a 3 on the tree. Well, you know, that would have been the way it came if it was a standard back in the day. I'm going to mock it up a little bit, but looking at my spare parts bins, I got a couple shifters here. Nice little T-handle. Basically looks sort of like a hearse shifter here. And then, even though it's got bench seats, I'm going to see if I can install seat belts from a spare kit of mine. So I kind of got to look into that a little bit. I don't know if that's worth doing, you know, because that wouldn't look right with shoulder harness seats and a bench seat. Maybe I will go with some aftermarket seats. Let's see here, I might try this. Yeah, you gotta check your parts bin once in a while, because I do got some options here. So I'm gonna do some test fitting and mocking up here, which I will do. So we'll be back. All right, so I got all the interior parts prepped, and I did decide that I will go with bucket seats in the front instead of the bench seat that comes with the kit here. I thought if it's gonna be all resto modded, that's what would have happened. I would have went with bucket seats and put a floor shifter in there. So, all right, forest green, here we go. Meet you at the booth.
Okay, so I'm at the booth once again, and I'm spraying about 20 psi pressure with a 0.3 millimeter needle and nozzle combination, and using the Kaleido ready to use forest green, or just dark green, I guess it was. It didn't take me long to realize that I just did not like that color, so pretty quickly here I painted a few pieces, and then I decided to just let them flash over a little bit, and then I changed my color. So it just shows that you can't always plan ahead. Sometimes you're just going to make adjustments on the fly. So I went with a two-tone paint job, and I switched over to olive, and I think that just looked much better. But I decided at that point I was going to do a two-tone, and actually it'll be a three-tone paint job because I'll be using a very dark green for the package tray and carpet. So I'm going to go ahead and speed this footage up here as I spray the interior.
Okay, so when I was at the booth painting the interior, I started out with just a green, a true green primary color, and it just looked way too toyish, didn't fit at all. So I switched it up, and you probably saw it in the video, is I stopped with the green, cleaned the brush out a little bit, and went to deep olive green, which is this darker little olive green here. I think that's going to look a little bit better, but I'm going to do a two-tone, so I have the deep olive green, but I'm also going to go over on the door panels and the seats, and I'm going to go with an olive green, and basically that's two different shades. You can barely see it here, just a little test pattern here, but I think that's going to dress up that interior a little bit nicer. Okay, so what I'm going to do is prep for painting the two-tone color with the regular olive instead of the deep olive. So this will be a little bit lighter of a shade. Get set up for that. I'll be right back. Okay, here's a little tip for you. I'm trying to mask off my seats because I'm going to go two-tone. And like this was very difficult for my big fat fingers to get that masking tape in place there. Very difficult. I used tweezers and toothpicks and stuff to try to get it into place. I think it'll work, but here's a better tip for you. When I went to the door panel, you got your door handles in the way, you got your armrests in the way. There's no way you're going to get masking tape to fit along all those edges and tack down really good. So I'm using bare metal foil as a mask. And it's done exactly like you would do bare metal foil, except for in the reverse. You put it on your area, and then the area you want to paint, you cut away and pull away and leave the rest there. Because I want this little, tuck and roll or scalloped area or whatever you call that material, that's going to be a lighter green. And then later, once that's all cured, I'm going to remask, and this bottom half's going to be a darker green. So just like the car, the interior is going to have a tritone interior color. So trying to bring it all together. But I thought that'd be a good tip for you. It works for me. It's tedious too. It's not all that easy, but better than masking tape. It just isn't going to work there. So, okay, get the rest of this masked up, and then we'll get to the painting. All right, so it took some time, but I got the interior all masked off. So, on the back seat too, I used a little bit of bare metal foil and masking tape. And, I already had flocked and painted this back end here, so I'm hoping I'm not going to destroy it. But I ended up taking a piece of paper and covering that, and then taping over the paper and wrapping it around the back here. And I'm just hoping I'm not going to mess that up too much. So that is masked, where I'm just going to paint my lighter olive color on the insets there. And same with my door panels, a mixture of masking tape and bare metal foil reversed. Dashboard halfway, and my buckets. Now, one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to spray very lightly, and I'm going to aim my airbrush away from areas that I'm concerned about. So, instead of driving my airbrush paint this direction, which would get under there, I will aim it this way, and it won't get under there. So that's some of the tricks you can do. Not the best masking job in the world, but I think it's going to be adequate for what I'm doing here. So I'm going to shake up this Kaleido olive green. The original darker color is dark olive green. Gonna shake that up really good, and we'll meet you at the booth.
Okay, so once again, I'm keeping my pressures just where they were. It's going to be 20 psi pressure, 0.3 millimeter needle nozzle combination, and I'm going to be spraying some very light coats because I don't want to over soak and risk getting the paint to creep in or wick in under my masking tape. All I really need is some color there. So spraying very light, probably only about a quarter throttle, and I'll just do a couple light coats. And I don't even need to wait for full flash time because I'm spraying it on so dry that once I get through the entire sequence of parts, I'll just go back to the first part and start over again. And I'm just going to speed this all up so that you can see the process.
right, so I sprayed my lighter olive color on the model, and I like to unmask as soon as possible before the paint really hardens up on me. And the fact that I'm anxious like a little kid at Christmas. Let's peel this stuff back, because I'm not wanting an in-your-face contrast. I got a combination of bare metal foil and masking tape here, so I have to kind of be cautious the way I pull that off. Okay, and then this one I was most worried about is where my flocking is, so let's hope when I peel this away. All right, so a little bit of bleed through I can see. No biggie, I can fix that. Okay, so a nice little two-tone there. Not perfect, but it's so you can take like an edge of a rigid Q-tip or something, cotton swab, and if you do get any bleed through, you can usually scrape it away, or a toothpick. Just a spot here, but it's not on the top side, so you're really not going to see it. A little bit of light dusting here. Okay. All right, so I got all the masking off. It looks nice and good. So see, I wouldn't have been able to mask that with masking tape that well. And the reason I didn't brush, I mean, this was a lot of hassle, but I didn't want to brush paint it because the Kaleido's made for an airbrush, so it's pretty thin. I probably would have had to let that kind of coagulate, if that's the right word, dry up in the cap a little bit to get thicker. To try to brush it on. Then I was afraid I was going to get brush streaks and whatnot. So that's going to work. I'm going to let that cure up, and then I'll be masking off again. And this darker area is going to be this darker green. And that's also going to give me an opportunity to just respray and touch up that felt there flock where I got a little bit of light colored in there. So I'm going to let that cure up and we'll be back. And in the meantime, I can start detailing my dashboard. I'm going to do some bare metal foil work in there. I believe there is a gauge decal set with the kit. And then I can also use my UV resin and make it look like a glass lens in there. So that ought to all detail up really nice. So we'll be back. Okay, so I want to do my third color on my interior. So the bottom of the door cards are going to be the carpet color, which is this dark green. And also I got a little bit of overspray of the lighter green on my package tray here. So I got that masked off. As long as I have my paint out there, I'll be able to touch that up and darken it up here. So I'll do that off screen. You know, it's just painting like I did on all the other parts, but I'll do that off screen and I'll be right back. All right, so I'm gonna dress up the dashboard a little bit here, and I'm gonna put some bare metal foil on that gauge cluster on the top there, because looking at reference photos, I can see that had like a stainless trim or aluminum trim or something. And the kit also comes with decals for the gauges, so I want to get this in first. Just gonna push that into place. Okay, then I'll use my X-Acto knife or scalpel blade number 11 to cut out that insert.
Okay, so while I'm doing the cutting and whatnot here, I'll just go ahead and speed this footage up.
Okay, so we got some nice little stainless going on there, so I'll get that decal installed, and then I'll take some of my Fusion Firm on a Q-tip and hit all my knobs. So let me do that. Okay, so now I'm just going to use a little bit of Fusion Firm Ultra Shining Fluid Silver. This is the brush-on version, and a little Q-tip here, or not a Q-tip, but a toothpick. Just get that tip in there, and I'm going to be hitting the knobs. Back in those days, a lot of chrome knobs. Chrome was the thing. Each one of those little radio buttons. Okay, so I got all my little buttons painted up and stuff here. So next up, I'll do the decals, and those buttons, I'm going to go with a black dot just to highlight them up a little bit. Okay, I'm only using a couple decals here. So I used the one license plate one called Starliner. It's a California plate. And I chromed that plate frame earlier. So I'm going to finish that off once that decal is set into place. I'm going to be using some of my UV resin to make it look like it has a clear cover over that. Similar to what I'll be doing to the dashboard gauges. Speaking of the gauges, got the little decal cut out here. Gonna soak that in water for a minute. And I've already tested these decals. They're really quick to come off. And just to make sure that that decal sets into place real nice on my dashboard, gonna use a little bit of micro set. And I'm just gonna brush that right on to the top of the dash. Okay, so let's get the decal out of here, where I can get my tweezer on it. Okay. I got that micro set in there already, so I'm just gonna put that into place. Pretty much looks like it's gonna cover where I did all my foil, and that's fine. Actually, it's still gonna work because that foil will look like a chrome trim ring. So I got that micro set in there and a little bit of an indent. So what I'm doing is I'm kind of lightly pushing with my Q-tip here. And then I'm going to take another Q-tip and just kind of sop up any water behind it. I'll put a little more micro set right on top of that. If I have to, I'll go to micro sol. Micro sol is a little bit more aggressive for dissolving or softening a decal. And sometimes if you put that on, if you soften it too much, it'll start just tearing on you. So I'm just gonna let that micro set sit for a few minutes here, and I'll come back. Okay, next up, I'm gonna do a little bit of UV resin in my backup lights here, and also the gauge cluster and the license plate frame. So what I'm doing here is I'm just dipping toothpick into my resin, and I'm dotting it on to where the lens would be. And these small lenses here, it's not going to take but a couple dabs at it. Okay, they're already covered, just 2 dabs. License plate's gonna take a little bit more because I gotta kind of fill that up. It's got like a little frame around it. So the surface tension of the resin will just kind of fill that void without overflowing it. It'll want to dome up. But that'll give it the look of a license plate cover. I just keep filling it up until I kind of get a surface tension dome build up. Okay, so now we have a nice little dome build up. So while I work on the dash, I'm going to go ahead and put this under the UV light here for 3 minutes. And I will continue working on the dashboard. And we've got a couple things here. We got our radio knob, which is very small, so I'm going to use the real pointed end of my Q-tip here, or a toothpick. Doesn't take much. There we go. So while that one's curing, let's take a look here. And you'll see there's a nice little dome on that license plate there. The backup lights look like they got lenses on them. Could even smear a little bit on those tail lights. Let me do that. I'll put a little bit on them tail lights. Little detail brush here. This one, I'm kind of doing the same thing except for with a brush and not building up so much of a dome, but making sure I got coverage and then pushing it into the edges. And pardon me, I do have to look through my light here occasionally so I can see what I'm doing. Okay, now I have a nice little gloss on my lenses, so I'm going to put that back under UV. This one's done. Lenses for our dashboard all cured up, so that looks nice. Looks like it's got a lens on there. Okay, just wait for those tail lights to finish up for the 3 minutes and we'll be right back. Okay, so now we got really nice looking tail light lenses in there. Even though there's red plastic lenses already in there, this just really improved the look of them, I think. That's going to look great on there. Okay, once again, just a little minor painting thing that just didn't warrant going to the airbrush is the upholstery itself has got a nice semi-gloss, almost a matte appearance, but this dark green down here, you know, that's supposed to be flat. It's way too glossy. So I'm just using some Createx UV matte clear. And of course you can use any kind of matte medium. I'd recommend water-based, but so just taking a nice flat paintbrush here. And I'm not even masking, I'm just being kind of careful here where I brush it. Okay, I'm just gonna let that set for a while. Okay, then I'm just gonna go ahead and brush the carpet too. I did not flock this area, but I want it to be dull. It'll look a lot better. Work around the floor mats. Floor mats can be semi-gloss. Okay, that's it. Just a little soap and water cleanup and we'll be done here. Okay, so while I'm waiting for some interior parts to dry up from painting and touching up, I am going to start assembling suspension and frame here. So, as you may recall on our previous video, because of the large tires in the back, I had to move my leaf springs inboard of the frame instead of outside. So I glued these little blocks to the inside of the frame rails in the back and re-drilled them. And in the front, I'm just going to glue the front purchase to the side of the frame here. So I just need a little drop of super glue. Okay, I'm gonna let that just set up for a minute. Okay, so now that the back leaf springs have been glued into place, the front ones, the perches, are just gonna go right inside the frame rail there. So I'm just gonna put a dot of glue and then I'm just gonna clamp it. We'll just let that set up for a minute. Okay, working on getting the rest of this front suspension put together. Okay, we're just gonna let that set up for a little while. Okay, I believe this is the last time to the booth here, so we're gonna spray 3 different colors through. This first one is gonna be stainless, and I'm gonna put that on the drive shaft and the gas tank. Second one's gonna be gloss black for the remaining suspension parts and to touch up the rest of the frame. And then I'm gonna go with a flat clear dull coat for the underside of the car and radiator hoses in case I want to use those. So one last trip to the booth. We're gonna do this all in one session. See you over at the booth. Okay, so next up, I'm gonna put some seat belts on here, and this came from a stash bag, so I don't even know where these came from, but they're fairly nice molded in harnesses. I didn't even have 2 of the matching harnesses for the top. And these were made for a shallower seat where it wrapped around the top. So what I did is I just took my snips and snipped them down a little bit. I think I can pull off the look. So what I'm going to do is I'm just, and all I did here too, by the way, is I just painted them with my black acrylic pen brush. And then I took a little toothpick with some fusion firm for the buckles. So essentially all I need to do is glue them into the seat here. So I'm going to get a drop on the back of each one of these. So this is the driver's side here. Okay, I'm just going to let those 2 set up before I do the bottom belts. Okay, so while I'm waiting for the interior parts to dry up and cure from painting, I'm going to go ahead and get the glass installed. So I put a nice microfiber down here to make sure I don't scratch up the roof while I'm working upside down. And tools I'm going to use is a detail brush and Mod Podge clear luster. You could use canopy glue or any other clear white glue if you wanted to, but I've got Mod Podge and quite a bit of it, so it's my go-to. And then we got our glass off our sprue here. So, looks very nice glass, by the way. Very, very nice, not scratched up. Very clear. Okay, so I'm going to cut that off the sprue. So I'm just going to place that into position. It looks like a couple locating pins here, which is nice. Yeah, that holds it really nice. Okay, so you got positive placement on the bottom, but nothing on top other than resting there. So first I'm going to just kind of hold my finger into place here. And I'm just going to go in and work some white glue right around where that glass is contacting the model. Just kind of pushing that in. Along the edges. Don't really want to use super glue. You can, but you got to risk it. The risk of fogging up your glass, and also super glue is very unforgiving if you get it on your glass. Where this white glue, you know, is pretty forgiving stuff. I mean, it can be peeled away essentially, and it dries clear. Okay, so I got the base of that on there pretty good. What I'm going to do now is just kind of put a little bit of tension there and hold down on the front here and work the glue in at the top. Okay, so I'm going to give that about probably at least 5 minutes to set up. We'll be back. Okay, so the front glass has been set into place, so now it's time to get the rear glass in.
Okay, so once that glue is set up on the windows, I continued on, and a couple drops on the back of the car to get the back bumper and tail light assembly in. Should have really waited till after I assembled the chassis to the body on that, but it still fit okay. Once again, I brought out my fusion firm and toothpick and just kind of detailed out the door handles and the window cranks. So next up was just gluing together all the interior parts. I'll speed this footage up, but I'll leave it intact so you can see how that all went together. Okay, so everything's been glued in the interior, so here's a couple slide shots of it. So the kit came with bench seats, so I converted to a console and bucket seats up front and got rid of the on-the-column shifter for a floor shifter. Okay, so then I went ahead and glued the interior tub to the top of the belly pan, and I'm working now from the bottom, and I'm going to do some assembly, including the gas tank and frame assembly.
Okay, so I super glued the motor into place. Actually, the motor mounts that came with the kit actually did line up with the block. So I fit the motor in there and held it into place, and then took my fine tip here, got it all the way in there, and then to lock it in, I used my accelerator super glue. So with that being said, I got my rear end in place and I got my tail shaft to my transmission. But when I went to fit the drive shaft in there, I was about 1/8 inch shy. Okay, so what I did, if you can see here to the left, is I got some styrene. It's a little larger diameter than the original drive shaft here. So what I did is I cut off both ends of the drive shaft where the U-joints are and the inputs areas to the rear end and the transmission. Cut those off and added approximately 1/4 inch to 1/8 inch to my styrene here. And I could have cut a small piece and spliced it in, but being that this is larger diameter, I'm making the entire drive shaft a larger diameter, other than the ends are still going to be smaller diameter. But all I'm going to do is I'm going to glue those two ends on there, hit some accelerator on there, and I'll repaint them, and I should be good to go. Okay, gonna let that just cure up and we'll get that glued into position and we'll be back.
Okay, so next up is tidying up the engine compartment and getting the radiator and radiator support in place, plus a few extra little details. So we're going to speed that up.
Okay, I got the battery in place too, so I think I'm ready now to marry the chassis up to the body. So I have this little letter opener that allows me to gently pry, and it don't take much. Just got to come forward a little bit. Feel it moving a little bit. There we go, she's going. Okay, that one side lined up. Just got to get inside the bumper here. These little tabs got to get just inside of that bumper. One of them is in. The other's in. There we go. All right. Now, I had somebody who was building this kit who was asking about how do you glue the chassis in. When I get a fit that fits that solid, I don't even bother gluing it in. But if you really wanted to, you just find a couple points, like right here where this touches the top of the fender. Get your little glue bottle right in there and get a dab. And you can also get a dab right back here where, the behind the wheel well and stuff. Just, try to find an inconspicuous spot if you need a drop of glue. But sometimes these chassis fit so tightly that you don't need to. Okay, next step. Okay, we're down to the finishing touches here. So I got the wheels glued on. So here's a shot of the underbody. Looks pretty good. I like the fact that the frame is a separate piece like that, but that's my new drive shaft. I just kept the ends of the original one and glued it to a piece of 1/8 inch styrene that I had. And the only thing I got to do is I still got open headers on it, and the kit comes with side pipes, so I think I'm going to try that direction.
Then I'm down to finishing touches. I got to get the door handles, mirrors, windshield wipers on it, and then she'll be done. All right, I'll be back. Okay, now I'm going to install the side pipes, and there are two little prongs on the side pipe and two female little holes on the underbody of the car. So it's pretty good positive placement there. So I'm just going to put a dot of glue in each one of those little holes. Okay, just going to let that set up. But now I'm going to have to manufacture an exhaust coming from the header to the pipe there, and I got to figure out how to do it. I've got this solder that's about the right diameter, but it's not very malleable, so I may use that. I could use styrene by melting it. That would be another way to go, or possibly a nice wire of that diameter and then just paint it stainless colored after you get it all shaped. So I got to figure that out yet, but I'm just going to let that all set up here for a moment. Okay, now the door handles come pre-pinned right up the chrome tree. Pretty nice. So what I got is I'm going to use just a little bit of Mod Podge glue. I got it in this little cap here. And they pre-drilled the door already. I didn't have to do that either. I just test fit it to make sure it did fit. So I'm going to get a little dot of white glue in each one of those holes. And then I'm using a little bit of my blue tack here because tweezers will just fling this thing and it'll be gone. Get it lined up. And just let that set up. Okay, so the kit came with extra or separately applied windshield wipers, and they're so delicate that one of them broke in half here. So I do have some windshield wipers I got from Iceman Collections, and they're very fragile too, but I was able to paint them and install them, but they're not really pinnable and way too delicate and small to drill and pin. So I tried to dot a super glue on the cowl and set it into place, and I got them into place, but what I ended up doing is just taking a little bit of UV resin and putting it on there too, and then hitting it with light here, just hoping that it's just enough to hold it into place. But they are extremely fragile, so let's see if that worked. Okay, they're there. Okay, I'm gonna get this all polished up or wiped off, get rid of all my fingerprints and stuff, and we'll go to the reveal. Okay, so she's all completed now, and I do like the look. You know, I wanted to use those aftermarket wheels and tires. I tried so many different kits, and I finally found this one, and I said I will make it work. And even though it's not my look, I do like the way it looks on this car, and I like my color combination. I think the stance is good. And all in all, it's a very nice kit. You know, I mean, I did extensive upgrades with the 3D printed engine and the oversized tires and having to make all that fit, but I think this would have been a fun kit right out of the box and would have been very easy, and I think the look would have been outstanding as well. But you know, I wanted to test my limits a little bit. I do have a few more tweaks to do on the car yet to just finish it up a little bit, but all in all, I'm pretty happy with the look. Impressed with the paint job too. For a water-based acrylic, I think it looks really, really good. Very high reflective quality to it. And here's one final look on the 360 table. You know, I started this video by calling this car an ugly duckling. I was never really attracted to it, but by the time I completed this build, it really grew on me. I think it's a pretty sharp looking car after all. especially with this kind of look. It looks like a resto mod that somebody's, made modern out of a 1960 Ford. So pretty cool. And I guess I'm off to my next build. Okay, so that concludes the build of the 1960 Ford Starliner. And, 4 parts, it was quite an extensive build, and I really took my time and showed all the details. Hope it wasn't too boring for some of you, but I know I have a lot of brand new builders coming in to the show, and I want to help them out too. So pardon me if it's a little too mundane. I'll kind of alter them, so like my next build will be a much quicker video. Once in a while, I'll just throw in a great, highly detailed video. So thanks again for watching, and we'll see you very soon.